It was on a warm summer day that we first made contact. Our expedition team had spent months traveling through the interdimensional gateway, cautiously exploring the alien world that lay on the other side. What we found was beyond anything we could have imagined. The land was covered in vast forests and grasslands. Towering above the tree line were immense sauropods, watching over their domain with curious eyes. Pterosaurs soared through the skies, skimming the treetops in search of prey. Small reptilian creatures scurried between the undergrowth. And yet this land seemed peaceful, almost serene. There was a strong sense of order, an intricate natural balance that had been perfected over eons of evolution. We watched from a distance, analyzing every interaction through high-powered lenses, recording every detail for future study. Our scientific minds were bursting with questions. How had this alternate reality unfolded so differently from our own? What processes had led dinosaurs, not mammals, to rise as the dominant species? It was then that we spotted them amongst the trees, massive theropods unlike anything we had seen before. Standing on powerful hind legs with crested heads held high, their sleek physiques hinted at both intelligence and ferocity. Large claws and teeth indicated apex predators adapted for hunting, yet they did not act as solitary hunters. They moved together in perfect, synchronized formation, split into what appeared to be familial units, coordinated by signals and calls. Our leader, Dr. Harris, urged caution. These creatures exhibit advanced social behaviors. We must proceed carefully until we understand their culture and hierarchy. It was then that disaster struck. One of the younger members of our team, overcome with scientific curiosity, stepped from the cover of the forest towards the theropod pack. They instantly caught sight of her and reacted. With shrieks and roars, two broke from the group in aggressive posture. "Get back here now!" Harris yelled, but it was too late. The theropods closed the distance with terrifying speed. The rest of us could only watch in horror. Phaser rifles armed, but unable to get a clear shot without harming our teammate. At the last moment, one therapist pounced, huge claws extended. There was a sickening crunch. Harris acted without hesitation. He fired stun blasts past the theropods, creating an ear-splitting cacophony that sent them retreating in alarm. We rushed to our fallen comrade, but it was already too late. Her mangled form lay lifeless in a pool of blood. A grim silence fell over the group. We had not anticipated such advanced, dangerous predators. Our first contact with this world had ended in tragedy. "We must withdraw, but also seek to understand," said Harris solemnly. "To honor her sacrifice, we must pursue peace." But how could peace be found with creatures so alien in form and mindset? We returned to our base of operations in a solemn mood. While the scientists continued analyzing samples and data in hopes of insights, Captain Vortha contacted the Federation Council with a request. "We request the assistance of an elite First Contact Division, the Thean peacekeepers. Only their unique adaptive skills can help navigate relations with this dominant theropod species." The Thean peacekeepers were a special branch of Starfleet comprised entirely of evolved humanoids descended from ancient Earth theropods like velociraptors and Deinonychus. Through genetic engineering and artificial selection over generations, they had regained lost traits like advanced problem-solving, tool use, and high trainability, essentially becoming sentient dinosaur people. Living mostly in isolated jungle habitats, they nevertheless answered calls for missions requiring interaction with non-humanoids. When the Peacekeepers' scout ship arrived through the interdimensional portal, we were shocked by their avian-like forms. Covered in feathers rather than scales, with powerful yet graceful builds, they carried themselves with a predatory comportment at odds with their peaceful mission. Their leader, Sub-Commander Serotonix, greeted us with sharp amber eyes and a cordial nod. "We understand the gravity of first contact. Please, share all you have learned so we may approach these theropods as equals." Over the next few rotations, the peacekeepers intensively studied our data, reconnoitered the territory, and eventually made visual but non-threatening contact with the apex predators from a distance. Serotonix began to pick up on subtle communication patterns and social behaviors. These are Tyrannosapiens, a sapient species that has filled the ecological niche of alpha predators through advanced cooperation and problem-solving. If we can prove ourselves non-threatening and establish trust, diplomatic relations may be possible. At last, the day came when Serotonix and a small peacekeeper team ventured into Tyrannosapien territory alone, unarmed, and announced their peaceful intentions in a call mimicking the theropod's own dialect. To our amazement, one of the Tyrannosapien packs cautiously approached to observe the newcomers. An attempt at communication was made. Slowly, contact was established. Through patience and understanding on both sides, trust began to form between the formerly alien species. The Tyrannosapiens, who had never known another intelligent race, found the peacekeepers' dinosaur-like minds strangely familiar. Meanwhile, the Therians' adept social skills and display of non-violence reassured the apex predators. Diplomatic trade of knowledge and resources followed, leading to greater cooperation. The Tyrannosapiens learned of alien worlds and history while sharing insights into their advanced ecosystem. Peace seemed to be blossoming between the two intelligent life forms that evolution had followed such divergent paths to create. Our first contact mission, which had come so close to catastrophe, was salvaged through Serotonix's thoughtful leadership and the unique aptitudes of the Therian peacekeepers. In a universe where dinosaurs evolved sapiens, only another evolved dinosaur race could forge ties of understanding. Thanks to their efforts, two peoples who might otherwise have been forever alien found peaceful coexistence and new allies in a vast multiverse still holding many mysteries. While the future remains unwritten, that day a door was opened to positive relations that will hopefully continue widening our concept of what intelligence can become, on Earth or among the stars. And we shall always honor the memory of our lost teammate whose passing helped shape a future of cooperation instead of conflict between beings so different, yet with minds perfectly suited to foster peace. In the cycles since first contact was established, the peacekeepers had worked tirelessly to learn all they could about the Tyrannosapiens and their sophisticated society. Sub-Commander Serotonix had taken a particular interest in one pack in particular, led by a great crested male named Dakotaraptor. Through observation and guarded interaction, Serotonix came to understand Dakotaraptor was a wise and even-tempered ruler who had united the fractured Tyrannosapien clans through diplomacy rather than force. It was Dakotaraptor who first extended a true invitation to the peacekeepers to observe pack activities unimpeded and meet the other members. Serotonix accepted cautiously, aware such trust must be handled with utmost care and respect. He selected a small team of his most disciplined Therians to accompany him, including his right hand, First Lieutenant Sorornitholestes. The Therians watched from a safe distance as the pack hunted on the open plains, coordinating strategies with fluid grace. Rather than solitary predators, the Tyrannosapiens worked as a cohesive unit, each playing a specialized role from drivers to ambushers. Dakotaraptor proved a master tactician, issuing near-silent signals that nonetheless conveyed complex commands across the hunting formation. When the hunt was successful, the pack called out in victory before beginning the work of butchery. That night, as the Tyrannosapiens rested, Dakotaraptor personally approached the peacekeepers' camp and gestured for Serotonix to join the pack by the fire. The Therians followed warily, aware of the honor being granted, but also the potential risks if anything went wrong. Dakotaraptor introduced each of his relations: his sister, Acheroraptor, his mate, Dromaeosaurus, and several hatchlings still dependent on the protection of the pack. Through chelicerae hand signs and vocal pitch modulations, Dakotaraptor conveyed the pack's daily social and territorial duties, which extended far beyond mere survival instincts. Their society was founded on mutual aid, respect for all members, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. A keen eye was kept on external threats, which might destabilize their domain if left unchecked. In many ways, their cooperation mirrored the tightly knit social structure of the peacekeepers' own tribes. Serotonix came to understand that rather than mere animals, the Tyrannosapiens possessed an advanced culture and worldview perhaps equal or greater than any in the Federation. Where lesser species may have succumbed to violent territorial urges amplified by their predatory nature, the Tyrannosapiens had risen above such constraints through compassion, enlightened leadership, and nonviolence as a way of life. The bonds of understanding continued strengthening between the alien races in cycles hence. With Dakota Raptor's blessing, Serotonix began inviting select peacekeeper teams to embed within Tyrannosapien packs, observing and even participating in hunts, rituals, and defensive exercises in order to internalize their way of life. The Therians proved adept mimics of communication, able to converse at a basic level, while their universal translators refined the dinosaur dialect. In turn, the Tyrannosapiens developed an intense curiosity about the peacekeepers' technologically enhanced society in the stars, and Dakota Raptor himself began studying Federation sciences, history, and philosophy through information exchanges. It became clear to all that the Tyrannosapiens possessed the intellect and social cohesion to ascend to the level of warp-capable spacefarers if they so chose, though for the time being they were content with their domain. All seemed well until the day disaster struck without warning. Therian scouts reported sensing a massive groundquake in the north, followed by an immense shockwave racing across the plains. Serotonix rushed to the epicenter and was shocked by what he found. An entire mountainside had collapsed in an avalanche of seismic proportion, obliterating everything in its path. Racing ahead, he came upon the devastated territory of Dakota Raptor's pack. Nothing but ravines, rubble, and ash remained where the forest had stood. With a sinking feeling, Serotonix summoned all available peacekeepers to the search and rescue operation, dreading what they might find. After hours of shifting wreckage under the burning sun, a survivor was located. Dakota Raptor himself, badly injured but clinging to life through sheer will. Around him lay the shattered bodies of his entire kin group. His sister, his mate, even the youngest hatchlings, crushed under unforgiving stone. Dakota Raptor barely reacted as Serotonix and the Therians worked frantically to stabilize his wounds, overcome with anguish and shock. The great leader had lost all that gave his life purpose in an instant of planetary fury beyond anyone's control. Back at the Federation base, all efforts went towards Dakota Raptor's recovery through advanced medical technologies. But his body mended far quicker than his spirit, which had been shattered beyond all repair. He remained comatose and unresponsive for weeks, refusing sustenance or company. The other Tyrannosapien packs sent condolences and offers of refuge, but nothing seemed able to rouse Dakota Raptor from his private hell of loss and guilt. All saw that without his wisdom and calm authority, the fragile bonds of peace he had forged were at risk of disintegrating. It was then that one of the few Tyrannosapiens who still held Dakota Raptor's trust approached Serotonix with a proposal: to take Dakota Raptor into the wilds, far from reminders of his past, in hopes the solace of open skies might reawaken his will to carry on. Though a risk, Serotonix agreed it was their last hope. He selected Soronith Alestes and a trusted healer named Ornithomimus to accompany them deep into uncharted territory, caring for Dakota Raptor, but giving him space to find peace in his own time. Weeks passed with no change, as the group wandered across alien vistas. Then one night, as Dakota Raptor stared up at an alien sky ablaze with unfamiliar stars, some inner switch was flipped. He rose, stronger though still haunted, and uttered the first words since that fateful day. "The land will heal, as all things do in time. My duty is to ensure those who remain find new purpose, and the cycles of life continue in balance." With that small sign of recovery, Serotonix knew their mission had succeeded where all else failed. Dakota Raptor had been given the solace and distance needed to remember who he was beyond loss, a leader whose people still depended on his guidance. Their long journey back would not be easy, but the foundations had been laid for new bonds of community to rise from the ashes of the old. The work of fostering peace was only beginning. The returning party was greeted with both joy and sorrow upon their arrival. Dakota Raptor had regained his will to lead, but the emotional scars of loss still lingered in his eyes. Serotonix and the Therians had fulfilled their mission, yet uncertainties remained over what challenges the future held. One of the Tyrannosapien sentries reported that in Dakota Raptor's absence, a power vacuum had emerged that several ambitious young hunters sought to exploit. One in particular, a massive bull named Gorgosaurus, had grown bolstered by a clan of battle-hungry followers. Through shows of force and intimidation, He was aggressively expanding his territory, whether the other packs wanted it or not. Dakotaraptor's hackles rose at the news. Gorgosaurus was always reckless, but I had hoped maturity would temper his aggression. It seems violence will be his way, whatever the cost to peace. After much deliberation with his advisors, Dakotaraptor came to a grave decision. Gorgosaurus leaves us no choice. He endangers all we have built. I must confront him directly and demand he stands down, or face the consequences. A conference was called between the Tyranno-Sapien leaders and Ceratonics. As a show of solidarity, the sub-commander pledged the full support of the peacekeepers should diplomacy fail and combat prove unavoidable. Our clans have become as siblings. The Therians will fight to defend our kin. Thus, the fateful meeting was arranged in a valley acting as a long-standing neutral zone. Dakotaraptor, Ceratonics, and their honor guards strode out amidst a field of watching Tyrannosapiens and Therians, while from the opposing ridge emerged Gorgosaurus and his hulking following. From a distance, Dakotaraptor called out, "Gorgosaurus, you stray from the path of peace. Relinquish the lands and peoples you have claimed by force, before this escalates further." But Gorgosaurus only responded with a snarl. "I owe allegiance to none but strength. Any who oppose me shall be crushed." In a flash, he leapt forward with lightning speed, aiming a savage slash at Dakotaraptor that was barely deflected. Pandemonium erupted as both sides collided in an inferno of flashing claws, raking talons and slashing teeth. Dakotaraptor grappled fiercely with Gorgosaurus, but his opponent's fanatical followers soon overwhelmed the honor guard. Ceratonics bellowed an order, and the peacekeepers entered the fray with discipline and precision. Therian skill and enhanced reflexes evened the odds against Gorgosaurus's brutish horde. Lieutenant Soronetholestes cooperated flawlessly back-to-back with Dakotaraptor, warding off attackers in a lethal dance. Yet for all their prowess, the defenders were slowly being pushed back under the weight of numbers. Dakotaraptor was tiring against Gorgosaurus's unrelenting onslaught. In a flash of inspiration, Ceratonics activated the stun functionality of his energy claws, scoring a hit that stunned Gorgosaurus long enough for Dakotaraptor to deliver a crippling slash across his face. Howling in berserk wrath, Gorgosaurus refused to surrender even mortally wounded. He was on the verge of lunging for a final attack when a piercing screech cut through the noise of battle. Emerging from the skies with utmost speed, a Pteranodon clan swooped in, easily snatching up Gorgosaurus's followers and dropping them from lethal heights. Their intervention turned the tide, and soon only Gorgosaurus remained, choking on his own blood. Dakotaraptor towered over his fallen foe. "Your way ends here before any more lives are lost to madness. Let this be a lesson to those who would inflict violence rather than diplomacy." With that, he turned and began tending to the injured as medics arrived. Ceratonics turned to the Pteranodon leader with a nod. "The peacekeepers are in your debt for saving our alliance. You have truly earned the right to call us kin." In the aftermath, Gorgosaurus's mutinous clan was dispersed with no bloodshed. Dakotaraptor gave a speech urging all packs to remember that through unity and compassion, they had overcome a grave threat to their sovereignty. Thanks to the Pteranodon intervention as well, a powerful new ally had been gained from the skies. All seemed set to return to an era of prosperity, until Ceratonics received an urgent communique. Federation scientists monitoring the dimensional rift reported drastic fluctuations that could threaten the stabilization field at any moment. They were detecting massive unknown energy signatures pouring into this reality from elsewhere, with catastrophic potential if not contained. Ceratonics knew he had to get Dakotaraptor and as many civilians to safety as possible. But when he broke the grim news, Dakotaraptor refused to abandon his territory. "My people will not flee like prey. We stand and face whatever comes together." Ceratonics could not fault such bravery and loyalty to homeland. With no time to argue, an evacuation plan was put into effect. Therian transports began ferrying pack members towards the Federation base while peacekeeper troops guarded the retreat. But it was already too late. With a deafening rupture, the dimensional portal tore open, vomiting forth towering organic machines, the likes of which had never been seen. Mecha behemoths several stories tall, armored in chitinous plating and bristling with bladed appendages. Their artificial eyes scanned the panicking landscape before emitting an ear-splitting harmonics that caused rock slides and earthquakes. The Tyrannosapiens and Therians fought valiantly, but were hopelessly outclassed against such abominations. Dakotaraptor and Ceratonyx led a coordinated counterattack alongside the Pteranodons, exploiting aerial maneuverability to disable sensor clusters and joint actuators. Yet for each behemoth disabled, two more seemed to materialize. It was a losing battle of attrition, and the dimensional rupture was growing by the minute. With heavy hearts, Ceratonyx made the wrenching call for full retreat, while the Pteranodons provided close air support. Dakotaraptor was amongst the last to fall back as enormous pincer claws swiped where he had stood moments before. At the Federation base, scientists worked frantically to stabilize the ruptured portal while the evacuation continued. But it was clear the extraterrestrial machines would overwhelm all resistance within hours unless a solution was found. Poring over scans and damage assessments, Ceratonyx realized with a flash of insight that the behemoth's cybernetic brains were still partially linked via subspace to their masters on the other side. If that link could be severed, a desperate gambit was formed. As the last transports prepared to jump to safety, Ceratonyx and a team of volunteer peacekeepers remained behind with prototype dimensional torpedoes. "For the Alliance, why our so?" they cried, launching a kamikaze warp core breach directly into the event horizon. A singularity ripped open with a shockwave felt across realities. When the dust settled, the invading army lay deactivated, their neural network control obliterated. The rupture sealed itself shut. Ceratonyx was nowhere to be found. With heavy hearts, Dakotaraptor gave the order to retreat through the portal to the Federation base, their homeworld now silenced and scorched. But against all odds, they had survived, thanks to the courage of true allies who gave everything to protect them to the last. In the aftermath of the invasion, a solemn mood hung over the refugee camps. The Tyrannosapiens and surviving Therians worked to tend wounds and tally losses in a state of numbed grief. Ceratonyx and his brave volunteers were confirmed lost, their sacrifice saving countless lives, but leaving a void in leadership. Dakotaraptor wandered amongst his exhausted, shell-shocked people, offering what small solace he could. The destruction surveyed from orbit was almost beyond comprehension. Vast swaths of forests, plains, and mountains leveled to cracked wasteland by the behemoth's wrath. Any that had not escaped were surely gone. Dakotaraptor almost collapsed under the weight of failure to protect his realm. But as he gazed upon the despairing faces of the packs, he knew he must find the strength to carry on and give them hope for what came next. In private talks with Federation officials, a difficult but necessary decision was reached. The dimensional rupture damage assessed that recolonizing their homeworld anytime soon was impossible. The refugees must instead petition to resettle on an uninhabited M-class moon orbiting a gas giant, recently surveyed and deemed habitable with terraforming support. Though bittersweet, starting anew somewhere safe seemed the wisest path. The moon embraced them with open plains, forests, and shorelines, reminiscent enough of their lost territories to ease sorrow. Construction of permanent settlements began around defended enclaves to house the packs over the coming cycles. Pacts were negotiated with local animal species to share the land in balance. Engineers dispersed nanotechnology to accelerate atmospheric conditioning, alter temperatures to favorable levels, and seed basic flora for consumption and shelter. A center of governance was erected where Dakotaraptor could coordinate rebuilding in partnership with Federation advisors. Here, all refugees were welcome to air grievances or needs in the open democratic processes he had established. Meanwhile, the Pteranodons adapted their sky kingdoms to the new floating mountains and thermals. Bonds strengthened between the grounded and winged allies as they hunted the seas and skies together once more. Over time, order returned from chaos through patience and cooperation. Young hatchlings emerged to experience safety and promise for the first time since the cataclysm. Yet shadows yet lingered in the survivors' eyes that would not fade. One evening, Dakotaraptor came upon his old friend Akiraptor perched alone amid cliffside ruins, staring into the sunset with red-rimmed eyes. Gently, Dakotaraptor joined her. The pain never fully leaves. But remember, all that was lost also lives on within us as long as we hold their memory in our hearts. Akiraptor nodded silently, finding solace in his words. In that moment, Dakota Raptor realized that though a leader, he too was not immune to private anguish, and that sharing burdens lightened the load for all. From then on, he made time daily to walk among his kin, listening without judgment as each processed grief in their own way. As cycles passed into seasons, the colony flourished under the refugees' determination. Advanced hydroponics domes sprouted wheat and tubers to nourish the growing populace. Mined metals and alloys were repurposed into tools, weapons, and sprawling high-rises, mirroring the designs of their lost cities. Extensive mineral deposits were located and earmarked for future shuttles, starships even. With Federation tutelage, science and invention blossomed amongst the instinctually intelligent Tyrannosapiens. It was on the 10th seasonal cycle of their new homeland that stirrings of a bittersweet celebration took root. The anniversary of their exodus coincided with Dakota Raptor's daughter, Dakota Raptor, growing into adulthood as the colony's first generation born free of fear and scarcity. A festival was called to honor progress, ancestors, and new beginnings. Dancers, artists, and engineers bonded communities through shared experience offered for appreciation. The evening's climax saw Dakota Raptor bestow his daughter with a traditional familial crest, signifying acceptance into Pack's leadership. But as she turned to address the packed plazas below, gasps arose, for drifting down from the atmosphere were dozens of silhouettes against Luna's glow, familiar wing shapes of pteranodons arriving in a migration unseen before. Their leader, Garadaspis, landed gracefully, explaining, "Our allies of the skies have borne witness to the strength and unity reforged from loss here. We felt the time had come to put down roots alongside you, so that our clan's bonds may flower anew together on this soil. Where tyranny sought to sever trust, let community take root in its place." Dakota Raptor was moved beyond words by the gesture of eternal kinship. He lifted Dakota Raptor and Garadaspis' wings together in the starlight, uniting the crowd's cheers as one people once more and always. From the shadows of trauma, a new dawn had risen, hopeful and radiant as the skies these survivors had claimed as their eternal home among celestial spires, bathed in lunar glow. Though darkness might yet come, their flames of compassion and resilience could never fully be extinguished. Nearly 5 cycles had passed since the refugee colony was established on the M-class moon. Under Dakota Raptor's steady leadership, the settlements had continued developing into flourishing cities complete with starports, universities, and commerce districts spreading between forested valleys. The Federation aided technological and cultural exchanges, forging strong allies out of former refugees. But Dakota Raptor knew his people could only achieve their full potential by venturing forth once more as spacefarers in their own right. In secret talks with engineers, plans had been laid for a prototype cruiser utilizing recovered warp cores and local metals. Its unveiling was met with awe and excitement from the colonists. At the launch ceremony, Dakota Raptor addressed the crowds. "The stars called our ancestors across the void untold eons ago, as they now call us to reclaim our destiny. This vessel marks the dawn of a new age, where we pilgrims become explorers once more, wielding compassion as our guidepost." The maiden voyage of Raptor's cry proved a resounding success, surveying neighboring systems at impulse before a triumphant return. Over the next cycle, a fledgling space force was formally established, with recruits from all over. Dakota Raptor entrusted command to a young pilot named Sorornis, who had distinguished herself in combat sims. "Lead our people to new frontiers with wisdom and care, Sorornis, but ensure also that our skills and readiness remain should darkness find our borders once more." She nodded, heart swelling with pride and duty at the monumental trust placed in her. Under her guidance, colonization fleets soon established self-sufficient outposts on nearby planets ideal for farming and resource mining. Communications buoys networked what was being called the Tyrannosapien Federation, a democratic union of cooperative worlds, trading knowledge and protecting outliers. Meanwhile, the colonists' technological mastery grew yearly through scientific partnership with Federation members. Particle beam cannons and ablative shields, worthy of defending any alliance, were gradually brought online. This new golden age seemed to have healed the last scars of tragedy for Dakota Raptor's folk. But fate had one final challenge in store. appearing without warning at the frontier. An automated long-range probe detected an anomaly several light-years out, a tear in normal space, fluctuating wildly like the rupture that had once ravaged their world. Dakota Raptor was alerted immediately. With grim understanding, he ordered Soronus to muster a task force to investigate. Her flagship Thunderclaw led a flotilla of cruisers arced with blue plasma lances, rushing at maximum warp. Upon arrival, scans revealed the distortion unstable but contained for now. More perplexing were energy signatures matching no known configuration. As they analyzed the fluctuating rift, a shape took form within, an massive ovoid construct of an unknown alloy, pitted and scorched but evidently artificial. Docking clamps engaged, pulling the derelict craft within Thunderclaw's hangar for examination. Breaching tunnels revealed cavernous engineering spaces and lifeless stasis pods, by the hundreds stacked in alcoves. Further inward, more startling discoveries lay in a central laboratory. Hieroglyphic displays flickered with status reports, and biosamples floated in life support canisters bearing unidentifiable DNA strands. Then a rumble shook the vessel and dormant panels slid open to disgorge eerie figures emerging from centuries-long hibernation. Soronus and her surgeons took defensive stances, stunned by what confronted them. Bipedal beings advanced, flesh-tinted, aquamarine, and veined with emerald currents. Vacuum-resistant envirosuits melted away to reveal aquiline faces crested by sensory frills, regarding the Tyrannosapiens with mild curiosity rather than hostility. One step forward, opening curved mandibles in broken universal. "Welcome, travelers. We are the Aquasapiens of Cetacea 4. Its story unfolded. Their aquatic homeworld had fallen victim to solar flares, forcing mass evacuation centuries prior in the sleeper arcs. But radiation-damaged nav systems sent them adrift endlessly until the space-time anomaly deposited them here. Soronis greeted them with understanding, arranging medical care and isotonic rations as a show of goodwill to peoples also scarred by loss of home. Upon return, Dakota Raptor convened an emergency session. Decisions had to be made on how to aid the displaced Aquasapiens without endangering current inhabitants. After rigorous debates, consensus formed on a daring concept: utilize terraforming expertise to adapt one of the Federation's temperate ocean worlds into a new Cetacea 4 suitable for aquatic colonization. The massive undertaking united engineers and biologists in a monumental show of compassion. Within 2 cycles, vast seas teemed with kelp forests and coral reefs where schools of alien life flourished. The Aquasapien refugees arrived via their repurposed arcs to find blue waters rippling under twin suns, their futures secured at long last. Dakota Raptor received their elders' blessings, cementing an alliance of gratitude between disparate survivors. Thus closed the final chapter in a long odyssey that had begun with trauma but ended in triumph of spirit. Dakota Raptor called his people together at the starport one last time, ready to pass the torch, having guided them from refugees to thriving interstellar power. His heir, Dakota Raptor II, stepped forward for her coronation, symbol of all future generations' promise under benevolent governance and scientific progress. As Dakota Raptor looked upon the twinkling colonies linked by buoy networks signifying hard-won prosperity and union, his mind drifted to one who never saw their rebirth come to fruition. Wherever your journey has led you, Serotonix, I hope you take solace, knowing your gifts bore fruit 100-fold. Our bonds of kinship are eternal. No darkness can sever them. With that, Dakota Raptor turned his eyes fully to the future, content.